name is Alex, and today I'm going to be showing you my entire Blu-ray collection. Here's how this is going to work. I'm going to go through every single movie I own, and I'm going to talk about half of them. I've done one Blu-ray collection video a year. For the past 2 years, I did one in 2015 when I first started YouTube, and then I did one in 2016. Anyway, guys, let's get right into the Blu-rays. The first section of Blu-rays I have up is my drama section of Blu-rays. The Shawshank Redemption. I have Digibook. If you haven't seen it, go watch it because it is one of the best movies there is. Gran Torino, probably my favorite Clint Eastwood movie. I love this movie so much. Great characters, very well written. Her, my favorite film of, well, it's either this or The Place Beyond the Pines that's my favorite film of 2013, but anyway, this is one of the best movies so far this decade, in my opinion. Magnolia, this is currently one of my all-time favorite drama movies. A great cast, a phenomenal story, very well done movie. Punch Drunk Love, Castaway, one of my favorites. Rain Man, actually my second favorite film of all time. Grew up watching it, and it's a very profound movie. It's a serious drama, it's a hilarious comedy. There's a lot of profound, messages and life lessons in this movie. Titanic, basically my third favorite movie of all time. I love it to death. Forrest Gump, my fourth favorite movie. Apparently, we're going through my top 10 list. American Beauty, my fifth favorite film of all time. I think that's it for my going down the list. Carnage, a really good underrated movie starring Jodie Foster, Kate Winslet, Christoph Waltz, and John C. Reilly. The whole movie takes place in this one apartment, and it's all dialogue, and it's fantastic. Not too many movies have successfully pulled that off, but this one has. Next up, kind of a similar movie to Carnage, Tape, the most underrated movie, in my opinion, by my favorite director of all time, Richard Linklater. Only 3 characters in the whole movie. Ethan Hawke, Robert Sean Leonard, and Uma Thurman. It all takes place in this one motel room, and it's all dialogue. And yes, this is a DVD. It unfortunately has not been released on Blu-ray yet. This has a really crappy DVD release, but I have my DVDs mixed in with all my Blu-rays. Waking Life, an animated film by my favorite director, Richard Linklater. A very deep philosophical movie. This film is animated using an animation technique called rotoscoping. They filmed the whole movie with really crappy cameras, with live action, and they animated over it, which I think is very cool and very interesting. This movie was really kind of a technical breakthrough in animation. A Scanner Darkly, the Before trilogy, directed by Richard Linklater. These are 3 romance movies starring Ethan Hawke and Julie Delpy. The first film came out in 1995, the second came out in 2004, the third came out in 2013. As each film comes out, like the characters have aged as well as the actors themselves. Besides Titanic, these are my favorite romance films of all time. Boyhood, my favorite film by my favorite director, and this is one of my top 25 favorite movies. The actor L.R. Coltrane, who plays the boy, is actually 3 years older than me, so it was pretty easy for me to relate to this movie. Dazed and Confused, Slacker. Next up, I'm going to talk a little bit about this movie because it's very underrated and not too many people know about it. It's called The Dirties. What the movie is about is these 2 film enthusiasts. They're high school seniors. The movie is basically them planning a school shooting. This movie is made for people who love films, and there's a lot of references to popular movies in it. Their Blu-ray cover here is a direct rip-off from the Magnolia Blu-ray cover. This is actually the rarest thing I have in my collection because they only made 150 of these releases. They have 9 different covers which rip off popular movies, but I got 141 out of 150. If you're a film enthusiast, definitely check out this movie. Operation Avalanche, with basically the same characters from this movie, but they're in another time period, and it's basically them faking the moon landing. Really well done, interesting movie. The Revenant, by the same director as Birdman. I liked Birdman way more than this, but this was still a very, very well done, well directed movie. Birdman, directed by Alexander Gonzalez Iñárritu, one of the best filmmakers working today, and this is one of the best movies, in my opinion, from this decade. He knows how to make a movie. And the same goes with the director of La La Land, Damien Chazelle. He has also written and directed Whiplash, which I don't have anymore, but that's another one of my top top 5 favorite movies so far this decade, but this one is incredible. One of the best musicals to come out in many, many years. Hacksaw Ridge, Creed, absolutely fantastic film. Place Beyond the Pines, for now tied with Her as my favorite film of 2013 and one of my favorite movies of the decade so far, like I keep saying with a lot of these movies. There's a lot of great movies in this section. If you haven't seen this movie, go watch it. It really is a great, unconventional movie. It's on Netflix. Next up is a very underrated movie in my opinion, Cloud Atlas. This is in my opinion a very great movie. The movie's basically about like 6 different storylines that connect through centuries of time, and it's very big on like the reincarnation theory. Tom Hanks plays like 6 different characters in the movie, and it's very complex. A lot of people just wrote this off as just stupid, complicated bullcrap, but in my opinion, it is not. Nebraska, written and directed by Alexander Payne. Very great, well-written movie. The Age of Adeline, very underrated movie about Blake Lively, who can't age. Room, fantastic film. The Walk, Manchester by the Sea, my second favorite film of 2016. Steve Jobs, my second favorite film of 2015. I love everything about it. I love the 3-act structure. I love the acting. It's incredibly well written. That movie has so much rewatch value to me. Great movie. Unlike the Ashton Kutcher Steve Jobs movie, in my opinion, not as bad as people say it is, but still not very good. Following, the first film directed by Christopher Nolan, one of the best filmmakers working today, and this is, in my opinion, his most underrated movie. Either buy the Criterion or watch it on Netflix. By far one of my favorite Criterion films. Nocturnal Animals, a great movie, a really well done, unconventional story. A Single Man, Grand Budapest Hotel. Being John Malkovich, directed by Spike Jonze and written by Charlie Kaufman, one of the best screenwriters working today. I wish he would write more movies because he is absolutely incredible. This is an incredible original movie. Synecdoche, New York, Charlie Kaufman's directorial debut. It's a great movie, but it's probably the most confusing movie I've ever seen. Roger Ebert called this the best film of the decade. Adaptation, one of Nicolas Cage's best performances. Anomalisa, probably my second favorite Charlie Kaufman film. It's a stop-motion animated movie. The Founder, Patriots Day. Drive, I don't love it as much as some people do, but still a great movie. Primal Fear, a great movie, incredible twist. Disconnect, really good underrated movie, starring Jason Bateman, and this was the start of kind of his more serious roles. Later, he did The Gift a couple years after this. Silver Linings Playbook, great performances, incredible writing. 127 Hours, one of my favorite Danny Boyle movies, fantastic. No Country for Old Men, A Clockwork Orange, Eyes Wide Shut, Full Metal Jacket, my favorite war movie of all time, Platoon, Saving Private Ryan, The Hurt Locker, Fury, Jarhead, The Godfather Trilogy, Taxi Driver, Goodfellas, my favorite Scorsese movie, Gangs of New York, The Aviator, The Departed Steelbook, The Wolf of Wall Street, one of my favorite movies of the past 5 years. Such a great fun movie, and the most rewatchable 3-hour movie to me. How can you not love The Wolf of Wall Street? Fast Food Nation, me and Orson Welles, Mean Creek, a really good underrated independent movie starring Josh Peck. I think this is directly before he started Drake and Josh. Josh Peck plays like a bully, and he cusses a lot. Really good movie. Shutter Island, The Game. I think we're on my small David Fincher section right now that are dramas. The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. Social Network, Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. Gone Girl, The Man with No Name Trilogy, True Grit Steelbook, The Quick and the Dead, 310 to Yuma, Unforgiven, Wall Street, and Wall Street Money Never Sleeps. Haven't seen the second one yet. Mask, great movie. I can kind of relate to this movie in a way. Pay It Forward, a great movie in my opinion, except the only problem I have with this movie is the ending. I'm not going to spoil what it is. They just threw in this random Hollywood ending just there to make people sad. It was stupid. Other than that, it's a great movie. Schindler's List, American Sniper, The Outsiders, Scarface, Heat, The Last Samurai, Top Gun, The Firm, Mud, Trouble with the Curve, Blue Jasmine, A Hard Day's Night, Mulholland Drive, a very complex movie, The Big Chill, Blowout, The Tree of Life, very beautiful movie, Straight Outta Compton, Foxcatcher, haven't seen it yet, Blindside, great movie, The Pursuit of Happiness, The Karate Kid, haven't seen it for years, The Karate Kid Remake, really good movie, a lot better than I think a lot of people were expecting. Crash, There Will Be Blood, The Master, Revolutionary Road, directed by Sam Mendes. Basically the story of Titanic if Jack had lived. Kind of a one-watch movie. On the cover it says, a hands down watch it 3 times in a row masterpiece. I thought I don't know about that, but Maps to the Stars, very bizarre movie. I kind of like it, though. Hitchcock, Ray, one of the first movies I saw in the theater. Glengarry Glen Ross, Public Enemies, Bad Lieutenant, Port of Call, New Orleans. You know, the funny thing about this is that, like, this is actually a remake of the original Bad Lieutenant film starring Harvey Keitel. The director of this movie hasn't even seen the original, which I think is pretty funny. Great Gatsby, okay, movie, I guess. One of the most unnecessary movies to ever be released in 3D, in my opinion. Good Will Hunting, Leaving Las Vegas, Rudy, Valkyrie, A Few Good Men, Blue Valentine, American Hustle, Joy with this really cool slipcover, Black Swan, kind of a bizarre, interesting little movie directed by Darren Aronofsky, very nice slipcover. The Lincoln Lawyer, Life of Pi, Savages, Magic Mike, The Descendants, The French Connection, 8 Mile, Black Mass, Slumdog Millionaire, Moneyball, Rounders, Sling Blade, Crazy Heart, Training Day, Clash of the Titans. I only got this because it was $3.99. A great deal on a digibook. This is it. Parkland, The Assassination of Jesse James, The Town, and Argo, The Machinist, American Gangster, American History X, The Gray, Milk, Gone Baby Gone, The Fighter, Warrior, The Wrestler. This is like my small boxing section, I guess. The King Kong remake. This is, in my opinion, a great movie, the one that came out in 2005. Criticisms I hear about this movie, they say like, oh, the first hour shouldn't even exist. It should have just started when they're on the island. No, you need that first hour when they're in New York for character development, so you actually care about the characters when crap's going down on the island with Kong and stuff like that. I remember seeing that in the theater back in 2005. I remember thinking that was a really cool experience. The Lord of the Rings trilogy. The first 2 Hobbit movies. I believe that is it for my drama section, so now let's move on to the thriller section. But first, since a lot of these box sets were on top of the thrillers, let's talk about a few box sets I have. The first big box set I'm going to show you is my Planet of the Apes collection. One of my favorite film franchises. The first original Planet of the Apes movie that came out in 1968 is my favorite science fiction movie. I believe it's like my 9th favorite movie of all time, 9th or 8th favorite. And the sequels, in my opinion, are very underrated. And like a lot of people think like, oh, Rise of the Planet of the Apes and Dawn and, War, those are all, prequels to the original Planet of the Apes. No, they're not prequels. They are their own thing. Because if you watch the sequels in the original series, they made 5 of these original Planet of the Apes movies. If you watch the sequels, they completely debunk that theory. I'm not going to say how. The third one, Escape from the Planet of the Apes, is incredible. It is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated sequels ever made. And those films really revolutionized makeup effects, like in movies. The 300 DVD set, I Am Legend, the Spider-Man limited DVD collector's gift set, the Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory set, the Nutty Professor box set. The only reason I got this was because it was $7. Home Alone paint can set, the Donnie Darko Arrow video release. This is a film that I watched a couple years ago for the first time and fell in love with it. It's a very complex movie, but once you understand it, it is really awesome. Really great movie with great performances. The Alfred Hitchcock collection that comes with Rear Window, Vertigo, Psycho, North by Northwest, and The Birds. Psycho is, in my opinion, the best horror film ever made and is my favorite black and white movie. Another Hitchcock movie, Dial M for Murder. 7, Fight Club, my favorite Fincher movie. Zodiac, my second favorite Fincher movie. Memento, one of my top 10 favorite movies. This is one of the movies that when I first saw it, it really made me more interested in filmmaking and editing. The first time I've ever actually paid attention to the editing of a film. My favorite Christopher Nolan movie. I love this movie to death. I love the chronology. If you haven't seen this movie, definitely check it out. It's about a man who suffers from short-term memory loss. And like the way this film is edited, it's backwards and forwards at the same time. We actually feel like we are in the main character's head because like the movie's going backwards. It starts with him like, where am I? And like we're thinking the same thing because we don't know what just happened in the movie. I would strongly recommend Memento, but it's very, very confusing. I think sometime in the next year or so, or a couple years, I'll make a full analysis on me explaining Memento in depth. And I love Memento so much, I own this DVD release of Memento. The movie, like I said, it's non-chronological. I actually like wrote down in here like on a little note of how to get to it. It's like an Easter egg in the menu that you can get to where you can watch the movie in chronological order, which I think is really cool. And like they advertised it on this box, but it's like an Easter egg that you have to find on the movie. It was like 8 menus deep, which is kind of bizarre, but it's really cool that that's on here. Collateral, another one of my top 10 favorite movies. This is one of the movies that really got me into action movies when I was younger. We really never got to see Tom Cruise play like a villainous character before. In this movie, he plays a hitman. Next up, Reservoir Dogs, another one of my favorite movies. My second favorite Quentin Tarantino film. Pulp Fiction, one of my favorite movies. From Dusk Till Dawn, a really good movie written by Tarantino, directed by Robert Rodriguez. True Romance. Jackie Brown, one of my little Tarantino section. I still haven't seen Jackie Brown all the way through, actually. Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2. Death Proof, in my opinion, Tarantino's worst movie. But the third act of this movie was really good, I thought. Inglourious Bastards. Django Unchained, my third favorite Quentin Tarantino movie. This is definitely one of my favorite movies of the past few years. I give it an A+. I adore this movie. I adore the characters. It's incredible. It's hilarious. That movie's a freaking blast, and so is The Hateful Eight. I didn't love it quite as much as Django, but it came pretty close. I love this movie. So well written. One of my favorite Tarantino movies. The Fugitive, one of my favorites. U.S. Marshals, the sequel to The Fugitive. Panic Room, directed by David Fincher. Probably his most underrated movie, in my opinion. Very, very well done thriller. The Gift, my second or third favorite film of 2015. Fantastic ending. The Guest, it was a great blend of so many different genres. Check it out. It's on Netflix. Nightcrawler, one of my favorite movies of 2014. 2014 was, in my opinion, one of the best years for movies in a long time. Jake Gyllenhaal is one of my favorite actors, and this is one of his best performances. American Psycho, another one of my favorites. One of my favorite movie characters of all time, Patrick Bateman. American Psycho and Nightcrawler, two pretty similar movies. 1 Hour Photo, it might be Robin Williams' best performance. Not his best movie, but best performance, because he is incredible in this movie. Very well shot and very well directed. It's by the same cinematographer as a few of David Fincher's movies. Fatal Attraction, one of my all-time favorite thrillers. Cloverfield, I love 10 Cloverfield Lane even more. This is one of my top 10 favorite thrillers of all time now. Strongly recommended. Duel, Steven Spielberg's first movie, about a guy who gets chased around by a truck. Very simple premise. A Simple Plan, a very underrated movie directed by Sam Raimi. And Sam Raimi is one of those directors that can really make a great movie out of any genre. You know, a comic book, a family movie, thriller, action, horror with Evil Dead movies. Don't Breathe, Enemy, Sicario, The Call, a lot of dumb aspects to it. Kind of a guilty pleasure, but I really enjoy watching it. Fargo, one of my top 20 favorites. So well written, so well directed, so well everything. I adore Fargo. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Ransom, this movie is so underrated. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. Like halfway through, it completely flips and turns into a completely different kind of movie. I don't think I've ever heard anybody really talk about Ransom. Buried, the whole movie is in a coffin. Ryan Reynolds has a phone and a couple other things with him. Phone Booth. Grand Piano, a very similar movie to Phone Booth, but I like him about the same. The Visit, The Village, The Sixth Sense, Signs, my favorite Shyamalan movie. The only Shyamalan movie that I want to get that I don't have is Unbreakable. That Blu-ray is like $15. I don't want to pay that much for it. Split. Spectacular movie. One of the best twist endings to a movie in a really long time. If you don't understand the twist, it makes the whole movie not make really any sense. But like if you understand the twist, it's cool and the whole movie makes sense. Get Out. Good movie, maybe a little bit overrated though. I still really enjoy it though. Insomnia, Christopher Nolan's worst movie, but still a really good film. The Prestige, The Usual Suspects, Unknown, Nonstop, and The Shallows, but better than I thought it was gonna be. Gravity, Limitless, when I first saw this movie, I thought, man, that's a really good movie. That director is going places. And then he directed Divergent, and he really didn't go anywhere. Knock Knock, bad movie, guilty pleasure of mine. I really enjoy watching it. Hide and Seek, Murder by Numbers, one of Ryan Gosling's first movies. A Walk Among the Tombstones. Escape Plan, The Ghost Rider, not the crappy Nicolas Cage flaming pile of crap. Ghost Writer, which I still haven't even seen yet. Now You See Me, another guilty pleasure of mine. The Adjustment Bureau. Now we're going to briefly talk about my TV series, 2.5 Men, the complete series. This is my favorite comedy sitcom. I grew up watching it. I remember watching it back like around the time it came out, and like I've watched like pretty much every new episode for my whole life, for all 12 years that it was on. And a lot of people say like, yeah, I like 2.5 Men, but I don't like it when Ashton Kutcher stepped in. Seasons 9 through 12 with Ashton Kutcher, it's really a completely different show when you think about it. It's not the same show And, like, people don't like it because of that. But I like it all. I do agree that it's definitely nowhere near as good as it was when Charlie was on. Next up, I got Seinfeld, The Complete Collection. Basically, my second favorite show of all time. 11/22/63, a great miniseries, 8-episode miniseries starring James Franco, to where he has to go back in time and stop the Kennedy assassination. I don't really watch too many TV shows, but this one sounded really interesting to me, and it's based off a Stephen King book, and it's produced by J.J. Abrams. And, of course, no spoilers, because, like, I'm not going to say if he stops it or not, because that's the whole mystery of the show, but in the finale to this show, the scenes where they do a recreation of the JFK assassination, one of the most suspenseful scenes I've seen in a really long time. Like, I think sometime on my channel, I'm going to do, like, top 10 most suspenseful scenes of all time. True Detective Season 1. Next up, more thrillers. Fracture, Killing Them Softly, Mr. Brooks, Taking the Pelham 123, Firewall, Next, Running Scared, Natural Born Killers, We Own the Night, The Ides of March, Secret Window, a triple feature with Swordfish, Point Break, and Executive Decision. I really want to see Point Break, haven't seen it yet. I know, shoot me. Into the Blue, Contagion, Vantage Point, a pretty good movie, I thought. Trespass with Nicolas Cage. A dude will do anything for a paycheck. Into the Storm, Butterfly Effect, Lord of War, Basic Instinct, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Twister, 21, pretty good movie, The Long Kiss Goodnight, and Wanted, another guilty pleasure, a very dumb movie, but I enjoy watching it. And that's it for my thrillers. So next, we're going to go through my horror films, one of my favorite sections in my Blu-ray collection. I'm going to briefly show you guys my 2 autographed movies, the only 2 autographed things I own, and they're both horror films. The first one I have up is the original Halloween 35th Anniversary Digibook, autographed by Tony Moran, who played Michael Myers in the first Halloween film. I saw him at a haunted house, and I also got the original Saw autographed by Tobin Bell, who plays John Kramer, aka Jigsaw, in the Saw series. I had him autograph my Saw 1 Blu-ray. I'm going to show you guys all of my Scream Factory Blu-rays that I own. The Halloween Collection, one of my favorite box sets in my collection, Child's Play, my second favorite horror film of all time. I am a diehard Chucky fan. I've loved these movies my entire life, so I definitely had to pick up this release. A great release, and it's currently my favorite Scream Factory film. Psycho 2 and Psycho 3. Psycho 2, I think, is a really great, underrated horror sequel. John Carpenter's The Thing. Army of Darkness, spectacular Scream Factory release. It comes with, like, 3 different cuts of the movie. The People Under the Stairs, Mad Max, and The Babadook. The slipcover opens up like this. The movie kind of scared people in a different way from, like, how we're used to seeing horror films scare us. The original Frankenstein with the glow-in-the-dark slipcover. Jaws, one of the best movies of all time. The Shining, one of my favorite horror films, and one of the best and most well-made movies. Reanimator, Silent Night, Deadly Night, Carrie, Silence of the Lambs, Misery, one of my all-time favorite movies. Great movie with great performances. The Exorcist 2, I hate this movie, it's terrible, it's a pile of crap. Evil Dead 2, I showed Army of Darkness, I have the Scream Factory, and the Evil Dead remake, which I haven't seen yet. The Omen Collection comes with the Omen 1, 2, 3, and the remake. The first one is a horror classic, one of my favorite horror films, and the Omen 2 and 3 I think are pretty underrated. I think the Omen 2 and 3 deserve Scream Factory releases. The Chucky Collection might be my favorite horror franchise. I adore all these movies. I think they're a lot better than people give them credit for. The first one is my second favorite horror film of all time. Child's Play 2 and 3 are amazing horror sequels. I love them to death. I love watching them every Halloween. And Bride and Seed of Chucky are guilty pleasures of mine. And the last one they made, Curse of Chucky, I thought it was really great. It reinvented the franchise, took it back to the roots of what it was and what it's supposed to be. And the third act was amazing, tied up the whole series amazingly, and I can't wait to see what they do with the new Chucky film that's coming out this year, Cult of Chucky. The Paranormal Activity series, another film series that I think the movies are better than people give them credit for. The first one is one of my all-time favorite horror films, one of my top 10. I love it. It's my favorite found footage movie. The second one I think is really good. I think it's cool how it tied in with the first one. There's a lot of clever scares in it. And the third one, my favorite sequel of the franchise, a great horror sequel with great characters. Paranormal Activity 4, not the best of the series, but I still really enjoy it. Paranormal Activity, the marked ones. Paranormal Activity, the Ghost Dimension, in my personal opinion, by far the worst out of the whole series. Next up, the Scream series. The first Scream is my third favorite horror film. I think this is really the only horror series to where all the movies in it are good. These are all really great, fun, self-aware horror films that I love watching. The Final Destination franchise, the first one is one of my favorite horror thrillers. The fifth one I thought was legitimately really good. It is, in my personal opinion, the best sequel out of the franchise. I thought it was really fun, had great characters. The ending to this movie, one of the best endings to a franchise ever. The Nightmare on Elm Street Complete Collection. Next up, we got the Saw series. One of my favorite horror franchises. The first one is my favorite horror film of all time. It takes all these little things that I love about movies and puts it all into one. That's why I love this movie so much. I have the original Saw Blu-ray that I have autographed, the uncut Saw DVD, because it has special features on it that aren't on the Blu-ray, and I got the German Saw Steelbook right here. Saw 2, Saw 3, in my personal opinion, the best Saw sequel, and there's 3 different cuts to this movie. There's the theatrical cut, the unrated cut, and the director's cut. Saw 4, Saw 5, I have this the collector's edition DVD set of it.
You thought it was over, but the games have just begun.
Saw 5 Blu-ray. Saw 6, my second favorite sequel, by far one of my favorite endings out of the whole series. And Saw the Final Chapter, Saw 7, Saw 3D, whatever you want to call it, in my opinion, and probably everybody else's opinion, is by far the worst. They got a new Saw movie coming out soon called Jigsaw. I'm really excited about that, but I'm very, very skeptical. In my personal opinion, a really good horror series. I know everybody thinks otherwise, but they're in my opinion, a lot better films than people give them credit for. Yeah, there's bad aspects to them. I'm not saying they're perfect films. The Blair Witch Project, a great horror film. Blair Witch, not as bad as it could have been, but also not as good as it could have been. I expected this to be miles better than it was, because it's directed by the same director as The Guest, which I adore The Guest. But it didn't really add anything to the universe. Grave Encounters 2, these are, in my opinion, really good, underrated found footage horror films. And I got this one recently. I gotta talk about these in a Blu-ray update sometime, like more in depth. Your next, Insidious, one of my favorite horror films. James Wan is probably the best horror director working today. Insidious Chapter 2, in my opinion, great horror sequel, really good, well done story, and like how it tied in with the first one. Insidious Chapter 3, in my opinion, kind of a disappointment. It was okay, but nowhere near as good as the first 2, in my opinion. It Follows, really good, well done, well shot horror film. Unfriended, a lot of people have mixed opinions on this movie. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really different. The Witch, haven't seen it yet. Oculus, Sinister, this might be my favorite horror film of the past 5 years or so. I think I like it a little more than Insidious, but the sequel to this movie I thought was absolutely terrible. The Conjuring 2, The Cabin in the Woods, another one of the best horror films of the past 5 years. Lights Out, The Thing remake, The Ring, great horror film. The Ring 2, not a great horror film. Jason X, my biggest guilty pleasure horror movie. It's terrible and stupid, but I love it. It, Dawn of the Dead remake, The Grudge, Last House on the Left, the remake, Piranha 3D, a horror guilty pleasure of mine, Prom Night, the remake, Hostel Part 2, Devil, 28 Days Later with this cool white slipcover, Jeepers Creepers, Wrong Turn, The Strangers, Camp Crystal Lake Memories. The only reason I got this was because it was $3, and it was out of print at the time I got it. 25 Years of Terror, Halloween documentary, Scanners, The Crazies, Trick or Treat, The Collector, and The Return of the Living Dead. Now we're going to get started on my action films, but first I'm going to talk briefly about this. The Back to the Future Flux Capacitor set. The first one is my all-time favorite movie. I love it to death. It was the film that introduced me to movies when I was younger, and the 2 sequels I still really enjoy, but are, in my opinion, nowhere near as good as the first one. Probably my favorite film franchise. I don't have to say much about Back to the Future. The only thing I have to say is if you haven't seen it, why and how? Go watch it right now. Like, literally after this video, go watch Back to the Future, okay? I'm serious. I think it's on Netflix, and if you don't, I'll find you. Indiana Jones, The Complete Adventures. Die Hard, the almost complete Blu-ray collection. This is probably my favorite action franchise of all time, right next to Terminator. The first one is my second favorite action movie of all time. Die Hard 2 I thought was okay, decent, but then the third one is my favorite sequel in the series, and that's one of my all-time favorite action movies as well. Live Free or Die Hard, I remember seeing that in the theater, and I love that movie as well. I think it's fantastic. John McClane is one of my favorite movie characters. A Good Day to Die Hard, I hated this movie so much. It is so bad. Let's move on. I don't even want to think about that careless excuse for a Die Hard movie. Terminator Digibook, my third favorite action movie of all time. The Terminator Red Case. I think this is the movie that holds the record for the most times a film has been released on Blu-ray. Terminator 2, my favorite action film of all time. I love it to death. Reinvented the action genre, and it's my sixth favorite movie of all time, or maybe seventh. Terminator 3, I really enjoy it. Terminator Salvation, I personally really like this movie. I really like that they tried to do something different from the original films. Terminator Genesis, another film similar to A Good Day to Die Hard that, as I put it, anally raped all the other movies. Oh my god, I hate this movie so much. The Road Warrior, Beyond Thunderdome, Mad Max Fury Road, one of the best action movies ever made. Casino Royale, my personal favorite James Bond movie. It's one of my all-time favorite action movies. Quantum of Solace, not a good movie. I enjoy some of the action scenes. The video game's better than the movie, I thought. Skyfall was really good, I thought. Not quite as good as Casino Royale, in my opinion, but it came pretty close. I thought it was a really good James Bond movie. And Spectre, I didn't think it was as good as Skyfall, but I still really enjoyed Spectre. I bought the Steelbook, and my dad's boss borrowed it from me, and he still hasn't given it back yet, and it's been almost a year. The Mission Impossible trilogy on Blu-ray. Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. I thought this was the best one out of the whole series. It was a great movie in my opinion, great action scenes, great characters, really well written movie. It was very funny. If I were to make a top 10 favorite action movies, this movie would be on there somewhere. Rogue Nation. I thought it was good, but in my personal opinion, not as good as Ghost Protocol. Born Identity, Supremacy, and Ultimatum. And Legacy, one of the most unnecessary sequels ever made. Speaking of unnecessary sequels, it's Taken 2 and Taken 3. The first one is one of my all-time favorite action movies. I love it. First Blood. Rambo, the only sequel out of the series that I like. 2 and 3 were okay. The Mummy Trilogy. Commando. Predator 3D. Predators. The Raid Redemption. Really good action movie. Really well choreographed action scenes, and the same goes for the second one. Dirty Harry, probably my second favorite Clint Eastwood movie. Desperado, Cliffhanger, RoboCop, Speed, John Wick, Kingsman: The Secret Service, Hardcore Henry, really fun, well done action movie. Cowboys and Aliens, Transformers 1 Steelbook, Gone in 60 Seconds, The Italian Job, Metal Pack, Backdraft, Hunt for Red October, Broken Arrow, Red, The Transporter, Face Off, Dark Man, Inside Man, Jack Reacher, Air Force One, and Hitman. Next up are the comic book films. First up, I got the Spider-Man Trilogy. First and second ones are my top three favorite comic book movies. And the first one is The Dark Knight. We'll talk about this one real quick. The Dark Knight Ultimate Trilogy set. I don't really have to say anything about the Dark Knight Trilogy. It is one of the best sagas of all time. If you don't own a copy of The Dark Knight on Blu-ray, you're not a true movie collector. I remember seeing that in theaters 2 times back in 2008 and just being completely blown away by it with all the effects and the acting and the story. Spider-Man 2 DVD gift set. The Amazing Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. The second one's a guilty pleasure, but the first one is by far my least favorite Spider-Man movie. Sony's a distribution company that's just like, oh, we don't care about art. All we want is money. Iron Man, the one that started it all. Probably my fourth favorite comic book movie, and Tony Stark is probably one of my favorite movie characters of all time. This is another movie I remember seeing back in 2008 and just being really blown away by it. Crap, saw the final chapter just hit the floor. It doesn't matter. The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America the First Avenger. Okay, I thought Iron Man 3, better than 2, but not by much. The Guardians of the Galaxy, Captain America the Winter Soldier, The Avengers, Avengers Age of Ultron. I honestly don't know why I bought this Steelbook. I just thought the movie was okay, decent. Ant-Man, one of my favorite Marvel movies to come out in recent years. I love this movie. I love the way it's written. I love the characters. I love the action scenes. This movie is just so fun to me. Like, this is my kind of superhero movie. Captain America Civil War, another one of my favorite Marvel movies of recent years. I thought this movie was spectacular. One of my top 10 favorites now. Deadpool, another one of my favorite Marvel movies of recent years. One of my top 10 favorite superhero movies. So hilarious, so great, so well written. X-Men, X-Men 2, The Last Stand, First Class, The Wolverine, Days of Future Past, and Logan, which is a great movie. One of my favorite movies of the year. Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, a very flawed movie. A lot of really bad things about it, but also some good things things about it. Suicide Squad, another mess of a movie. Triple feature with Superman, the original movie, the Superman 2, the Richard Donner cut, and Superman Returns. Batman 1989 with Batman Returns Steelbook. The Crow, I don't think this is a comic book movie, but a really great movie. Sin City, another one of my favorite comic book movies. I really love this filmmaking style. It's where, you know, it's all black and white, but there are like shades of color. Sin City, A Dame to Kill For. Kick-Ass 2. Ghost Rider Spirit of Vengeance. 300 Rise of an Empire. Fantastic Four and Fantastic Four Rise of the Silver Surfer. Don't really know why I own them. Watchmen, Ang Lee's Hulk, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Steelbook, Blade 2, Hellboy, and Hellboy 2, V for Vendetta, and The Green Hornet. Next, we're going to talk about my science fiction movies. First up, we got the Alien Anthology. And Prometheus, it has a lot of problems, but overall, you can't deny that it's a great-looking movie. Very well-directed movie. Great cinematography and effects and stuff like that. Star Wars, the almost complete saga. The Force Awakens, a great movie. And Rogue One, a Star Wars story. The third act and the last, like, 2 minutes. Oh, that's so epic. Jurassic Park, the complete collection. Close Encounters of the Third Kind. E.T. Digibook. Matrix Digibook. Total Recall. The Hunger Games, don't really know why I have it. Independence Day. 12 Monkeys, haven't seen it yet, but really want to. Heard it's a great time travel movie. Elysium. Logan's Run. Armageddon. Red Planet 2010, the year we made Contact. And Contact. Knowing with Nick Cage. Men in Black 3 Steelbook. Avatar. I think it was overrated when it first came out, and then like the people's opinions changed on it as time progressed. That's my theory on Avatar. Pacific Rim, In Time. I heard this movie is a waste of time and wasted potential. Looper and Lucy are stuck together. Looper, stop trying to cling to hot Scarlett Johansson. Lucy, a guilty pleasure movie. Yeah, it did kind of rip off Limitless, a much better movie in my opinion that I talked about earlier. Looper, a pretty good time travel movie. Really want to see it again. Haven't seen it again for a while. Oblivion, then Dread, World War Z, Godzilla, I thought it was decent, and Maggie. Here's a lot of good sci-fi movies right here. Inception, by one of my favorite directors, Christopher Nolan. The Martian, very well-written movie, good story. Another really good, well-written sci-fi movie, Edge of Tomorrow, which it made so much less money than they anticipated that they had to change the title for the Blu-ray DVD release, which I thought was pretty funny. I mean, actually, that's not funny. That's sad because that's such a good movie. Interstellar, yeah, there's some cheesiness within it, but I'd still give it like an A. Rise of the Planet of the Apes, a great reboot. Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, honestly, pretty cliched, but I still really enjoy it and has really great computer effects. I got the Best Buy exclusive metal pack right there. Predestination, starring Ethan Hawke, Star Trek Into Darkness, Super 8, Ex Machina, Under the Skin, Snowpiercer, another really good original sci-fi movie. They don't make too many great original movies anymore. War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise. I really like this movie. A lot of people don't like it, but I think it's really good. The Day After Tomorrow. And that is it for my sci-fi films. And the only 2 sections I have left are my kids and my comedies. And my voice is dying. So let's talk about the Disney and Pixar movies real quick. First up, I got The Lion King. I got this for $13. A few people said that I got a really good deal on that. The Good Dinosaur. I got it for $5. I thought, why not? I'll get it to add it to my Pixar collection. The Incredibles, one of my all-time favorite animated movies. I love it so much, and they're finally making a sequel to that. Thank you! After giving us 2 Cars sequels, God! The original Toy Story, the one that started it all. Again, it might be my favorite animated movie of all time. I remember seeing this when I was really little and being blown away by it. Toy Story 2, amazing sequel. And Toy Story 3, another amazing sequel. Inside Out, I thought it was good. I didn't like it quite as much as other people did, but I thought it was good. Up, I still haven't seen the whole movie to this day. And like everyone says, I look just like the kid in it. Finding Nemo, another one of my favorite animated movies. Love it so much. This is the second film I ever saw in the movie theater. Finding Dory, I really enjoyed Finding Dory. I thought it was a blast. It was really great seeing all the characters that I grew up with Finding Nemo again. Monsters, Inc., Zootopia, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, Oz the Great and Powerful, My Neighbor Totoro, and Howl's Moving Castle. I still have yet to watch them, sorry. I have National Treasure 1, but I don't know where it went. National Treasure 2, Freaky Friday, guilty pleasure of mine. Holes, good movie, I enjoy it. Alvin and the Chipmunks, I like the first one, but the other 2 are kind of eh. I don't know why I have the other 2. Journey to the Center of the Earth, Where the Wild Things Are, big with the singing slipcover. The Wizard of Oz 3D Metal Pack, Space Jam Steelbook. I grew up with this movie. The Sandlot, Jumanji, The Princess Bride, Madagascar. I really liked the first Madagascar. 2 was okay. I didn't really like 3. The SpongeBob movie, Sponge Out of Water. The Peanuts movie, the Lego movie. Shrek, one of my favorite animated films. I do want to get the second one on Blu-ray, but that's it. The rest of them aren't good. And Despicable Me. Okay, one more section left. American Pie, American Reunion. This is 40. The Nice Guys, a great movie of 2016. I think this is my 5th favorite. Really good, well-written, funny, original movie with great characters. They don't make movies like this anymore, you know? Why Him, my 2nd favorite comedy of 2016 to this. Definitely one of the funniest characters James Franco has ever played. Sausage Party, Pineapple Express, Knocked Up, Superbad, one of my favorite comedies. This Is the End, one of my favorite comedies of recent years. I love this movie. The Interview, Paul, 21 Jump Street, another one of my favorite comedies of recent years. 22 Jump Street. I thought the first one was better than the second one, but the second one was still really good and funny. Neighbors and Neighbors 2. Due Date, kind of a remake of Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, sort of, but of course nowhere near as good as that, but still really funny. Zombieland. I would love to see a Zombieland 2. 30 minutes or less. In my opinion, a pretty underrated comedy. I really, really like this one. I think it's very funny. Bad Teacher or The Millers. I enjoy this movie, but like it's almost on the level of being a guilty pleasure. The World's End might be my favorite Edgar Wright movie. Top 5, 50-50. Horrible Bosses, Bad Words, Forgetting Sarah Marshall. Ted, another one of my favorite comedies of the past 5 years. I'm a huge fan of Seth MacFarlane. I love Family Guy. Ted 2, not as good as the first one, but still enjoyable. A Million Ways to Die in the West. Don John, really good directorial debut by Joseph Gordon-Levitt. It was very unconventional compared to the average romantic comedy. Speaking of romantic comedies, 50 First Dates, Happy Gilmore, it's a classic. Anger Management, Jack and Jill, Don't Know Why I Have It. Click, Grown Ups, Funny People, Dumb and Dumber and the Mask, Dumb and Dumber 2, Liar Liar, one of my top 10 favorite comedies. Truman Show, great original movie. Bruce Almighty, pretty good and it holds up. I watched it again recently. Fun with Dick and Jane. Yes Man, one of my favorite Jim Carrey movies. A really good comedy that really makes you think about your life. Friday, Hot Tub Time Machine, Crazy Stupid Love. Clerks, my 2nd favorite comedy of all time. Just a great comedy, very well written, amazing characters. I got the Zavvi exclusive Steelbook. Clerks 2, I thought Clerks 2 was fantastic. Not quite as good as the first one, but it really sucks that we'll never see a Clerks 3 because the guy who plays Randall just doesn't want to do it, and he won't give a reason why. Just, no, I don't want to do it. Freaking everyone's been begging for Clerks 3 for years, and just because, if I ever see him in real life, I'm going to punch him in the face. God, he's such an idiot. Anyway, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, fantastic Kevin Smith movie. Zack and Mary Make a Porno, Cop Out, his worst movie. Red State, I enjoyed Red State. I thought it was pretty decent. Tusk, it's a guilty pleasure of mine, not a good movie, but I enjoy it. That was my little Kevin Smith collection. There's still a couple that I need to pick up. I have almost all of them, but Chronicle, one of my favorite found footage movies, one of my top 5, just a really entertaining movie, I thought. About kids that get superpowers and they document it all. Another one of my favorite found footage movies of recent years, and a very entertaining one that I love watching, Project Almanac. I love time travel movies. While We're Young, the Ghostbusters Digibook with 1 and 2, 500 Days of Summer, Juno, Clue the Movie, Moonrise Kingdom, Midnight in Paris, The Man, a pretty underrated comedy. Nobody remembers it, nobody's heard of it, but I enjoy it. I think it's pretty funny, actually. Anchorman 1 and 2, Get Smart with the slipcover, Wet Movie 1, thank you for stealing the slipcover from me from a thrift store when I hung out with him. Tommy Boy, one of my top 10 favorite comedies. I can relate to that movie because a lot of people say that I act like Chris Farley's character in that movie. My Uncle Ed, if you watch my channel, my Uncle Ed is exactly like him. Groundhog Day and Stripes. I love Groundhog Day. Haven't seen Stripes for years. National Lampoon's Vacation, Christmas Vacation, Jingle All the Way, Weird Science, Ferris Bueller's Day Off, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, in my opinion, one of the best comedies ever made. That's like my small John Hughes section. Along Came Polly. I love this movie. Great comedy. What Happens in Vegas. I actually think it's a pretty underrated comedy. Kindergarten Cop, The Big Lebowski, The Breakfast Club, Office Space, one of my favorite comedies. School of Rock, my favorite comedy of all time, directed by my favorite director, Richard Linklater. It's one of the most quotable movies to me. I quote this movie all the time. Mrs. Doubtfire, another one of my favorite comedies. My Cousin Vinny, my third favorite comedy of all time. Bad News Bears, the remake. Bernie, another really good Richard Linklater movie. One of my favorites from him. Raising Arizona. Everybody Wants Some. A Serious Man. A really underrated Coen Brothers movie, Burn After Reading. Really hilarious comedy, very well written as well, as all Coen Brother movies are. Spring Breakers, Guilty Pleasure. Safety Not Guaranteed, spectacular character piece. Really a great movie. I love Safety Not. If you haven't seen it, check it out. It's by the same director as Jurassic World. The Clerks, the animated series. Little Miss Sunshine. Last Action Hero. Wayne's World. I've seen it for the first time recently, really enjoyed it. When Harry Met Sally, Stranger Than Fiction, Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Entourage the Movie, Election, Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein, Spaceballs, Coming to America, The Pink Panther, Guilty Pleasure, the South Park movie, Scary Movie 2 and 3, The Simpsons movie, Step Brothers, Roadhouse, The Watch, Delivery Man, Tower Heist, oops, crap. The Benchwarmers, Guilty Pleasure, Date Night, Bad Grandpa, Grandma's Boy, Final Stack, Couples Retreat, Bad Santa. I'm just going to say screw it and say them all. Hit and Run, The Other Guys, Semi-Pro, The 40-Year-Old Virgin, a.k.a. My Life, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Talladega Nights, Night and Day, Paul Blart Mall Cop, don't know why I have that. Old School Empire Records, Sideways, Overboard, The Blues Brothers, Major League, The Way Way Back, Whip It, The Incredible Burt Wonderstone, and Tropic Thunder. I forgot about this. This Hangover 2 set. I keep all three movies in there to save room on my shelf. And also the E.T. DVD collector's gift set thing. Oh my god, that is all of my Blu-rays. Thank you guys so much for watching. Down below in the comments, tell me what you thought of my video and tell me what you thought about anything I've said. Tell me how you organize your Blu-rays. Follow me on Instagram and add me on Snapchat. Those links will be down in the description below. Alrighty guys, I'll see you later.